this reading conferencing in your classroom?
So it was kind of something that I'd started after I'd read 180 Days with Penny Kittle and Kelly Gallagher, and even before that, I kind of just worked my way into it. For me, it's just that ability to let students read things that they're interested in. It gives me a way to kind of approach big topics with students because of what they're reading. I can find out more about their interests, that kind of thing. And it also gives me a picture of the skills that we need to work on in class. So if I notice, quite a few kids are struggling with talking about characterization, that's something that we're going to bring up in class when we're studying text together. But there's kind of a sort of safety net and an interest level that you have with personal books that you just don't necessarily have time for in the classroom.
Yes, indeed.
Because Dalen,
My friend had a good recommendation, and I am thoroughly enjoying this new book.
okay, so this is a different book for you. So what are you liking about this?
This has definitely a turn of the future. It has a futuristic look into the future. It's really good, it's definitely
really
out of my book type or genre.
I say you don't usually choose books like that. You usually choose really like nonfiction type ones. But this would be it's different than Ready Player One, but it's kind of
It's
genre,
like in
right?
the future, but it's a different style of the future.
Yeah.
Like in Ready Player One, they're all poor, and there's lots of poorness, but in this one, they have solved world hunger and death and everything.
Yeah.
And so it's just a real spin on the future.
Okay.
How do you structure your class so that you can do the reading conferencing while other students are working independently?
I start every single class with at least 10 minutes of independent reading. I stretch that out to 15 minutes when I can. And so we build that right into our classroom structure right from the beginning. We do it at the beginning of class because it's our opportunity to kind of settle down and do some reading, and then we move on to our lesson from there. So during that 10 minutes of independent reading is when I meet with usually about 1 to 2 students. It depends on how quick our conferences are, how long our conferences take, and so I just pull them to the back and have those discussions while the other kids are engaged in their own reading. Feel about that? Like, do you think that this would actually be like something that could happen in the future where we like completely rely on the cloud?
I mean, parts of this book definitely could be possible, but I'm not 100% sure yet. Like, it's still a little bit out there.
Right, so what part are you at?
I have just read where the site has found its 2 apprentices, and they're just going to their first gleaning.
So describe the gleaning. Like, what is that?
So the sites are in charge of putting people to death based on statistics. So when the age of mortality was still there, the statistics were like, if you were a teenager and drank alcohol and you just got a new vehicle, you were super likely to die in a car accident. So then they find someone who fit that statistics and then choose at random.
That was one thing that I found really interesting, was that it wasn't just like, okay, we're gonna do this like lottery, because like we've seen that before, right? Like we're gonna do this lottery and just like randomly we're gonna choose people to die, kind of like in the Hunger Games or whatever. This one, they're like, no, like we're gonna base it off of like how people actually like died way back when, and I thought that was kind of an interesting way to do it. Yeah. Okay, so what do you think? Like, where do you think this is gonna go then?
I'm not too sure yet, but I'm sure that one of them is going to be picked as the new site, and I'm kind of thinking it's Citra, I think.
Why?
I don't know. I just think that I just have that feeling that she'll be the new site.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it more when you're presenting. Okay.
How do these conferences inform your teaching?
So for me, one of our big learning targets in my class is to become a vibrant, self-directed reader. And another learning target deals with like how we use reading to help us to inform ourselves about the world around us. And so what this independent reading does is it allows students opportunities to read different genres, read different books. I allow students to listen to audiobooks sometimes, and they have that opportunity to look at things that interest them, and then from there our conversations become about, you know, how they use their strategies to understand things, and we kind of organically just talk about different things. So, you know, things that we might not necessarily always get to right in class. And it also helps to show me what I need to teach either in small groups or to the larger class as well. So if we're talking about something like characterization in our conferences, or we're talking about point of view, and a student gets to a text with multiple points of view, sometimes that's something that maybe we'll bring up to the larger class, like how do multiple points of view help to give us a different understanding of the author's message or purpose, that kind of thing. So that is how those conferences inform my teaching practices. It kind of gives me an idea of where students are and where I need to go as the classroom teacher in terms of teaching skills and strategies. It also allows me to develop relationships with the students outside of class. So depending on what they read, I'm able to be informed about who my students are, what they enjoy. For some of my students, it gives me an opportunity to recommend things to them, so that they can kind of explore thematically different things and allow them to have conversations with me about those things in a way that isn't so personal that they feel like they can't talk about things. So it kind of serves as a twofold purpose for me. It helps to inform my teaching practices, but also build those relationships with my students.
So how do you use this for assessment purposes?
So I find that sometimes when you have conversations with students, you get a lot more out of them for some students than you can get with writing, and I find, you know, the opposite true for some other students depending on their comfort level. But it just gives that additional way to kind of show what they know or what their understanding is. The students in my class all have personal goals, so they would have a personal comprehend and respond goal or a personal reading goal, and that goal is something that we often talk about during our conferences. So when they're doing their reading, you know, how is this reading helping them to achieve whichever goal it is, and all of those goals are varied depending on where the students are at.
What impact has this had on your students' learning?
I get students who don't generally love reading. I get them for at least 10 minutes a day. You know, they sometimes will start with really simple books, or what we would consider to be really simple books for their reading level, and slowly I can encourage them to try different things. It allows them opportunities to have discussions with their peers as well. So sometimes we end up having these like little discussions about, you know, a certain book that someone has read, and I get these recommendations that students give to each other. So, you know, I read this book, I think you'll really, really like it. I've seen a lot of that starting to happen in the classroom as well. So building that kind of community. So what do you think as a student are the benefits of conferencing about your independent reading, or like doing independent reading in class?
Well, doing the independent reading makes everyone have to read, and then they can get engaged in their book. And then having a conference after confirms what they've read and how they're interpreting the book in different aspects. So that's what I think.
So do you find that beneficial for your learning?
It definitely deepens the understanding of the book, because you first read it and engage your brain, but then you talk about it, which also engages your brain in a different aspect.
Okay. I had another question, but I can't remember. Oh yeah, how does it relate to like your goal setting, or how does it help you to like set and meet goals in English?
So I think one of my goals was like reading more, and by participating in the 10 minutes of silent reading, you actually read, but then it makes you want to read more, because you get engaged in the book, and then it becomes interesting, and then it'll help you to read at home or whenever you have a spare minute.
Okay, so if we didn't do like choice independent reading, do you think that you would meet those goals as easily?
I probably would not, because I don't spend a lot of time reading at home, so I think it definitely helps.
Perfect.